Hey, up next on the MARR Rock Show, I'm super excited to have Blue Rising back, man. This is a band that I absolutely love, and I'm not just saying it because Austin's listening on the other side of the line there. I truly, truly love this band. Austin, their singer, they are Blue Rising out of Bloomington, Indiana, and Austin's with us tonight. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Man, so let's get right into talking about your second full-length album, Someday. Now, I was a little confused. So can people buy the physical copy of the album right now, or is it out and available for folks?
Yes, we're having several regional physical release parties where the CDs are available, but you can also go to bluerising.net and order physical copies directly from us.
So tell me a little bit about some of the CD release parties. How did you pick where you were going to do these things, and how the party's been?
Well, so far we've done one, and we have another one scheduled for early November. The first one that we had was in our hometown of Bloomington, Indiana, which is a pretty big college town. It's where Indiana University is, and it went extremely well. It was received very well by everyone. We were able to make a lot of new fans as well. And we sold out of all of our copies. So
hey, that's a good thing.
We had to order more.
That's a real good thing to have happen there for you.
Yep.
Now, I also noticed it looks like folks can actually purchase the album now from the website as well. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
So, hey, let's talk about some of the music. The first single, Dust, how did you decide that was going to be the tune to come out with? Because the whole album's chock full of good stuff.
Well, actually, we kind of thought that it's a little bit more alternative, I guess you would say, than some of the others. Most of our music leans toward, it's always melodic and it's always progressive rock driven. I wouldn't go as far as to say that we're heavy metal, but most of our stuff is pretty heavy, and we thought that this song in particular would be sort of more available to a wider audience. It's got that aggression and it's got that kind of emotive passion, both in the vocals and the instrumentation, but it's not so, I guess, angry in quotes as songs like "I" or "Waiting."
So tell us a little bit about the making of the music video. I saw the music video, and it's a very well done video. So tell us a little bit about that.
Cool. Actually, we've been sticking with the same videographer throughout our entire career so far. He's also our photographer. His name is Robert Stouffer. He's based in the Bloomington, Indiana area. Also, he directed the film. It was actually done in a building that was featured in the movie. If you've ever seen Breaking Away, it's sort of the one of Bloomington's calling cards for fame. But it was actually done in one of the buildings that was filmed in.
So, man, tell me a little bit about I hear keyboards on this album? I don't recall hearing keys in the other albums. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Tell me what went on to make the band decide to do that.
Well, Barrett, the bass player of Blue Rising, his primary instrument is actually classical piano, so that's a skill that he hasn't really been able to flex in the band so far a whole lot, except sometimes in a live setting he'll break out the piano, but as far as on the record so far, he hasn't really had a chance to flex those muscles. But we've sort of found an outlet where I put the rhythm guitar down and I pick up. Essentially, it's called a Mesa Tri-Bass, and it allows me. It's a MIDI controller that allows me to control synth bass that's hosted in Ableton Live, and I can craft my own sounds. And it's actually a way that I can essentially play bass and hold down the low end while he plays keys. So in songs like "Breaking the Machine," which is track 4 on "Someday," you'll hear those sounds that I'm talking about.
Man, that sounds pretty complicated. So are you actually so you're kind of physically playing, I guess, like kind of 2 roles at once?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really no different than playing guitar and singing at the same time. It's just, to put it very simply, I'm just playing bass and singing at the same time. But I'm controlling synthesizers with this. It looks just like a guitar but it doesn't have strings. It has touch pads and basically like an iPad looking thing on it.
That's very cool sounding. I have not seen that done live before, so that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, it goes over really well live. People basically lose their minds, which was sort of the idea to begin with. You know what would be cool? Let's use this thing and blow people's minds, and sure enough.
Hey, one of the that's awesome, man. One of the things I like that you guys did is that the lyrics are out there on the website, and I wanted to ask you as I was reading through them this morning about the song "Run Aground." Is that song like a metaphor or a poem, or is it actually a true story about something?
It's a metaphor. It's absolutely a metaphor. It's kind of, putting it simply, it's sort of about giving up. You know, it's you're at the end of your rope. It's sort of that sentiment. I think we've all felt that way. You know, you work hard, you try hard, and then sometimes you get to the end of your rope and you just feel like you don't have any more energy, any more determination, and you just feel like your ship has run aground, which is the metaphor that kind of goes through the song.
Now, I always hesitate to compare bands to other bands, but I've had a lot of people, they know how much I love your band, and I try to describe you guys, and I really struggle with it quite a bit, and I guess that's kind of a good thing for a band, that people have a hard time pinning who you sound like on them, isn't it?
I think so. You know, it's good not to be a copycat or a clone of some other band. I think that's where a lot of original bands sort of go wrong. You know, you can tell they're trying to sound like this band or that band, but they're just not quite there. But when a band has something new, I wouldn't go as far as to compare ourselves to like Black Sabbath or Led Zeppelin, but that's why those bands I think were successful, is because they were doing something nobody else has done before.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Since I had a hard time pinning another band's label on you, who were your influence musically? Who did you grow up listening to that inspired you to be a rocker?
Personally, Black Sabbath would have been my first influence, and I remember when I was 9 years old, listening to Iron Man in my dad's pickup truck, and just thinking, wow, that is just totally badass, and I really guess I've never been the same ever since. Black Sabbath was definitely my first influence, but as I grew older, I studied a lot of different bands. Metallica was one of the ones that I came across that I just thought was, wow, they're continuing that legacy of aggressive rock. And, you can call them heavy metal. It's kind of, metal has sort of transformed, and now when you say heavy metal, people's reaction is screaming. That's what people think of. It's, really, really dark, heavy screaming with no singing and no melodies. But so I sort of generally try to steer clear of that definition or that or associating with that genre. But I always referred to Black Sabbath as being heavy metal and Metallica as being heavy metal.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I get heavy metal bands is sort of what I studied growing up.
So as a diehard Sabbath fan, I got to ask you, I like to ask Sabbath fans this, Dio or Ozzy?
Both, absolutely.
Yeah, it's always been hard for me to pick as well. So, hey man, I'm sitting here looking as I'm speaking to you on Skype. I'm looking at your logo here with the circles. Is there any meaning behind that logo, or what is it, or is it just kind of a cool design?
It's a cool design, and we designed it ourselves. But it does sort of have meaning. We call it the Icarus, and it's, I guess, I think I'm just going to post something online about it rather than getting into a really long description of what it means.
Yeah, no worries. I always sometimes even hesitate to ask bands that, because it is usually either a really long story or we don't know, we just thought it looked cool. So.
And actually, one of our fans was the first person to get that tattooed on their body recently, and he got it on his hand.
Hey, man, that's got to be quite an honor for you to see a fan walking up to you with that.
It actually really was. It kind of blew my mind. I was extremely humbled by the whole thing.
So, hey, living with the Midwest winters and winter coming up, how does a vocalist take care of their voice throughout the cold and flu season? Do you do anything special to make sure your pipes are good for all the singing you got to do?
I drink a lot of hot ginger tea, and I actually recently started taking vocal lessons for the first time. I'm totally self-taught, but as we've played more and more shows and our sets have gotten longer, we do our own headliners now where we're playing 2+ hours, and a lot of these songs I'm just belting it out the whole entire time, and so by the end of it, it's just my voice is raw. And in a world where I'm doing that every single night, I just don't see that being sustainable. So I decided to start taking lessons, and my teacher has been teaching me proper technique to where I have a lot more endurance now. So I plan to continue with that, and I'm just scratching the surface. But I definitely think that vocal lessons have been helpful.
So, man, 2016 is right around the corner, and two more things I want to ask you about. One is, did you guys have a lot of songs written before this album? Because, man, you released a lot of music in the last year and a half. I mean, the first album came out, and it seems like, wow, it's just, running through that one. Here's another one right behind it. Did you already have 2 albums worth of music written?
Not entirely, but it's definitely true that we had some of this album written when our first album came out. Because our first album, which was just called Blue Rising, which is also available on bluerising.net. It was a lengthy process to get that thing recorded. It took about a year and a half, 2 years from the time we set foot in the studio to the time it was released. And so in the meantime, we were writing, and we wrote several songs that ended up on this album. But a lot of them, honestly, a lot of the songs we wrote in that time didn't end up on the album. We wrote even newer stuff that we put on the album. We don't put everything on the album. We write more songs than we decide are cool enough to put on the album. So we're our own worst critics.
Now, do you guys ever do acoustic shows?
We do acoustic shows probably once every couple months, and those go over pretty well. People seem to like the contrast. We have different arrangements. We switch around guitar parts. Luke, the drummer, he plays a cajon as opposed to a full drum set, and it's something we really enjoy doing. So, man, 2016 just around the corner. What are your goals for the band in the upcoming year, 2016? Well, we're definitely already looking toward our next release, which we plan on doing a 4-song EP, and we're hoping to get that. We're hoping to get that out within the next 6 months. Honestly, we just want to keep moving straight forward. We also would like to see ourselves on a regional tour with a band of hopefully of a higher caliber with a wider audience as an opening act. We're always looking for opportunities that will take us from this sort of regional band out to a wider audience. But I think that's where the real challenge happens. It's difficult for all bands to get past that phase. So, but we're always looking for opportunities. And in the meantime, we don't want to stagnate by not continuing writing music to keep the people that we depend on, our fans, regionally happy. So I think the more music that we have, the more music that we have to offer, the better.
Well, we're going to do everything in our very humble power here at the MARR Rock Show, Mid-Atlantic Rock Reviews, to help you guys jump to that next level that you're looking for. And I think you guys clearly got the talent, and I don't think you'll get upstaged by anybody you guys play with. So the new album is called Someday. You can get it at shows right now, and you can buy it straight from the Blue Rising website as well. And the band is Blue Rising out of Bloomington, Indiana. And Austin, I want to thank you for being on the MARR Rock Show tonight.
Hey, thanks a lot, man.